Today, we're digging into a really fundamental piece of the puzzle when it comes to global business and human dignity, the UN's Protect, Respect, and Remedy framework. And we're going to kick things off by breaking down the very first pillar, the state's duty to protect human rights. So let's start with a really important question. Imagine a company, could be any company, big or small, does something that harms someone's human rights. Whose job is it really to step in and protect that person? Who is the ultimate guardian of their rights? Well, that's the central problem Pillar 1 is designed to solve. And the answer, according to the UN guiding principles, points directly to one place. It all starts with the government. We're talking about a core responsibility that every single state has to its people. Now, what's really important here is how specific this principle is. This isn't just about a government not abusing rights itself. No, this is about a state having an active duty to protect people from harm caused by others, especially by businesses. It's a fundamental part of a country's job on the world stage. So, what does protect actually look like in the real world? Well, it boils down to these 4 key actions. Think of it as a complete cycle of responsibility. First, states have to try and prevent abuses from ever happening. But if something does go wrong, they have to step in to investigate, then punish whoever is responsible, and finally make sure the victims get redress, some kind of remedy for the harm they've suffered. Okay, but things can get a little complicated, right? Let's talk about what happens when the lines between government and business start to get blurry, because in those situations, a state's responsibility actually becomes even clearer and more direct. And there's a specific term for this relationship, the state-business nexus. It's basically any situation where a government and a company are closely tied together, maybe through ownership or funding or some other kind of major support. And this is where that duty to protect really gets amplified. I mean, if a government owns a company, or if it's using taxpayer money to give a business export credits or investment insurance, then it has a much, much stronger obligation to make sure that company is respecting human rights. At that point, the state isn't just a referee, it's a player on the field. All right, now let's shift gears to some of the most difficult environments you can possibly imagine, conflict zones. This is where the risk of human rights abuses just skyrockets, and where a state's duty to protect is put to the ultimate test. This quote from the UN's own commentary really says it all. When law and order break down during a conflict, it creates this dangerous vacuum. And it's in that chaos that businesses can get tangled up in some of the absolute worst human rights abuses. So what's a state supposed to do? Well, they can't just throw up their hands and say it's too difficult. They have a duty to be proactive. That means talking to companies before they go into these areas, helping them understand the dangers, and being ready to pull public support, like funding, from any company that's involved in gross abuses. You can probably see by now that fulfilling this huge duty isn't the job of just one person or one government office. For it to actually work, it needs a totally unified whole-of-government approach. And the magic word for that is policy coherence. It's a simple but incredibly powerful idea. Every single government department that has anything to do with business needs to be working from the same playbook, a playbook that's built around the state's human rights obligations. Just think about it for a second. Without that coherence, you get total chaos. You could have the Trade Ministry trying to sign a deal with a company while the Labor Department is investigating that same company for abuses. Or an investment agency might be promoting a project that legal regulators know is problematic. For this to work, everyone, from trade to labor to corporate law, has to be rowing in the same direction. So as we wrap up our look at this first pillar, it's pretty clear that the state duty to protect is the absolute foundation of this whole framework. It sets the stage for everything else, establishing governments as the primary guardians, before we can even talk about business responsibility or access to remedy. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. These are principles for governments, sure, but we all live in this incredibly connected world, as consumers, as employees, as citizens. So the real question for all of us is, what's our role in making sure these principles aren't just words on a page, but a lived reality for everyone?